Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lights Out F1 podcast. Just the two of us this week. I'm Matt Salmons, and I'm joined by Callum McAvoy, which should make it nice and easy for you to understand, rather than me going Callum O, Callum M, Callum O, Callum M, and you just have no idea which Callum's speaking. Just me, myself, Matt Salmons, and Callum McAvoy, no Joshua Fletcher or Callum Owen this week for various different reasons. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to them again in the near future. But Callum M, first of all, we've had the longest break so far this season, a 2-week break before the Australian Grand Prix. Obviously, the last one was Saudi. How have you been in the 2 weeks? Did you miss Formula One last weekend? How's that been for you?
I was having withdrawal symptoms over the weekend. It's, you get so used to a Grand Prix every week that when you don't have one, it's just very, very jarring. But glad we're racing this weekend, and glad to be back in Australia as well. Been far too long since we've been there, so.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to talking about that later. I think we've already seen some fantastic Instagram posts already from the drivers who are soaking up everything that Australia, not only Melbourne, but Australia has to offer. I saw a picture of Nick Schumacher with some like crocodile today. I don't know if you saw that. I've seen Esteban Ocon posted a nice picture of the city all lit up, and it just looks quite nice and a much better place to be than the UK at the moment, which you can't decide what it was to do here at the moment. And I know we're already talking about the weather, but I drove home from work today. It was cloudy, then it rained, and then it rained. It properly rained, and then it was like bright sunshine by the time I got home. I've got no idea what's going on in the UK at the moment. But let's talk about motorsport rather than the UK weather, because nobody wants to hear about that, and everybody that's listening to us is probably in the UK knows all about it anyway. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. The first thing to do is talk about the fact that Carlos Sainz got his first ever pole position in Formula One. How proud were you? How pleased were you for Carlos Sainz?
You mean Sergio Perez, surely, Matt?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes. Where did I get that from?
I was like, what do you think?
Where did I get that from?
I have no idea.
I said that too confident. What happens if it's just two of us and we do it at the last minute? Of course, it was Sergio Perez, and it's you as well.
This is what happens when we don't do a pod for about 2.5 weeks. We completely forget everything about Formula One. Yes, of course. I was so proud. My boy Sergio. Deeply disappointed that he wasn't able to convert it into a win. Just unlucky time with the safety car, wasn't it, during the race? But oh well, we go again, I guess.
That is exactly why you've got a job in the industry and I'm still at university. I can't believe I messed that up that badly. I'm really going to beat myself up about that. I think it's because I'm looking back at our predictions. I've got them on the screen in front of us, and everybody put Sainz in second, or most of it. I think 2 or 3 of us put Sainz in second, which then made me think that he was on pole for some reason. But Sergio Perez, first ever pole in Formula One. It's not even pleased. You would have been proud of him because he was your boy. But he didn't convert that and didn't have the best race in the world. I think he came to finish 4th, was it in the end, or 3rd, something like that? You just take over.
4th.
You get it wrong.
I have one job on this pod, and that's to correct everyone else's mistakes. Yeah. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Exactly. Saudi overall was nowhere near the chaos that we saw last season. What did you make of the race overall? We didn't really see too much action apart from another exciting Charles versus Max battle.
Well, yeah, let's give it credit where it's due. The battle between Max and Charles was very, very good, and quite comical at times. Obviously, Charles trying to brake first to make sure he got the DRS detection zone. I thought that was hilarious to watch. But really, aside from that, not the best race in the world, and may not have had as much chaos on the track, but there certainly was a lot of stuff going on off track. And I think that it says a lot that was the main headline from the race. Obviously, everything that happened with the missile attack on Friday, and the drivers reportedly deciding they weren't going to race, and all of a sudden the heads of F1 and government officials came in and were like, oh no, you are going to race because you're contractually bound to do it. We'll never know entirely what was said in that meeting. But a lot of questions about the future of Saudi Arabia and certainly other countries on the F1 calendar, which I'll be very intrigued to see what happens to that in the future.
And I woke up on Saturday morning very confused. I think I remember being, but not only because I'd been out the Friday night, but also because of kind of what had gone on, and that kind of added to that. And I was kind of like, there was a lot of it. The first I kind of heard with it was on Twitter on Friday afternoon. I think I saw Chris, is it Medland? I think it is. I think our account follows him. And he posted a picture of like smoke kind of in the background of one of the official pictures. And I didn't really think much of it at the time because I didn't really know what it was. And then I think it was Saturday morning when I woke up and watched FP3. And I think Sky's coverage before that was just solely on what had happened. And I was like, oh, this is a little bit more serious and we should be taking this more seriously. What do you think persuaded the drivers to race then? Do you think it was just the fact they were told, you've got a contract, you've got to fulfill it?
I really don't know, to be honest. I think that obviously they made assurances that no, it is going to be safe to race. It's difficult to say. I don't think all the drivers were sold on cancelling the race. I think there were, from what we understand, there was a few who were very vocal about it, namely Hamilton, Russell, I think Sainz and Schumacher as well were the kind of the main ones apparently pushing for the race to be cancelled. But yeah, bit difficult, really. I think there's a lot of obviously cogs in the machine here, and I hope we do find out eventually what was said in that meeting, because I really rather hope it wasn't a case of they were threatened into racing, because that'd be very, very bad. But yeah, I apparently Lewis Hamilton has been invited into talks with the sports minister for Saudi Arabia to discuss the future of the Grand Prix, which I think is a good sign. But yeah, something needs to be done, because it was a bit of a sham that we went racing there in the first place. And I think this week, the Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago hasn't really done its cause much good, to be honest.
Yeah, it did seem a bit of a strange one and very confusing. But let's go back to that battle. A lot of people are saying Max is driving differently this year in his battle against Leclerc, probably because of their previous karting history. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that, as you say, he knows Charles more. He's maybe has a little bit more respect for him on the racing track than Lewis, and that's just like a generational thing, I think. But yeah, there's been some kind of insinuation that this is going to be a very friendly battle for the championship. There's no such thing. I think this to me has a lot of hallmarks of when Rosberg and Hamilton first went up against each other for the championship in 2014. The racing was very firm but fair to begin with, but then as it emerged that it was going to come down to the wire between the two of them, it got more aggressive, and these two childhood friends became very bitter rivals by the end of it, and haven't really recovered from that rivalry as well. So yeah, watch this space. The kind of friendship between Charles and Max is going to turn very sour very soon.
Yeah, I think the weird thing for me that I noticed definitely with Max is not so much with his driving style. It was more in the press after the race. I think I may have said this in our chat as well, that every race, Lewis last year was congratulations to Max, congrats to Max, blah blah blah. This year, and we didn't see that at all from Max last year. Back towards Lewis, Lewis did a great job. Lewis pushed me really far, maybe once or twice, but it never was heartfelt, I don't think. Whereas both of them this year are straight to praising each other, and I think that's something that, like you said, is probably going to fade out if they turn out to hate each other. But cast your mind back 12 months to when Verstappen and Hamilton's championship rivalry was just starting. You wouldn't say it was a similar vibe then, would you? It was there was kind of more respect probably between them, but it was certainly, there's just something different about this one, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely, and you get it's just different driver dynamics between each racer. Really, that's just how it works, I guess. Yeah.
And then let's just cast our mind back to qualifying as well. We can't forget the hour delay that we had for Mick Schumacher's huge, horrendous accident, which obviously put him out of the race. I don't think Haas wanted to spend the money to rebuild that car and then have to build the car again for Australia. So that's why they withdrew him. Luckily, he came away without any injuries, probably almost miraculously, you could say. I think maybe he might have had one or two joint things, something like that. Who knows? I'm sure he'd have been battered and bruised after it. There's probably no doubt about that. But let's start on the positive note. And I know we've probably said this quite a lot, and the negative we've said quite a lot as well. But the fact that he's been able to walk away from that accident pretty much unscathed just shows how far we've come since the Grosjean accident, or just in the last 10 years of Formula One safety.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's always improvements to the car, and it is a very much a safety first sport, or it should be at least. I think it goes to show again, this track just isn't safe to race on. They're doing 200 miles an hour with incredibly narrow walls either side of them. And yes, it's a thrilling spectacle, but that shouldn't get in the way of driver safety. And yes, there were less crashes this year than there were last time out. And obviously that just comes with the drivers having more experience around the track, but it's not going to improve. And had Mick been hurt more seriously in that incident, I think there'd be even more concerns about racing in Saudi Arabia than there already are. So again, watch this space as to what they do. Whether we go back to this particular circuit again, I'm not sure, but yeah.
And we were taught before the weekend that the walls were brought kind of inwards or outwards, probably, however, whichever way you want to put it. The walls were 1.5 meters further away than they were last year to try and improve visibility. But I mean, I don't know if you watched the feeder series, but I watched pretty much all of the F2 sessions through the weekend, and we had a lot of red flags throughout them. So probably a bit of a silly idea to take F2 next year, and maybe F1 will be reconsidering that as well for reasons that are off the track as well that we've already kind of touched on before that. But I assume then you're not going to be disappointed if we never go back to Saudi Arabia in Formula One ever again, or within maybe the next 10 years until things are starting to improve there.
I wouldn't be disappointed if we took it off the calendar, but it is contracted for the next 10 years. So yeah, it's a wishful thinking, I think, at the moment, sadly.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be like you said, watch this space, and we'll have to wait and see what happens, and hopefully we get some improvements. But let's not talk about Saudi anymore. We've talked about that enough. There isn't much more to talk about in terms of Saudi, apart from the predictions table. We need a little update on that one. None of us got pole right. None of us said it was going to be Sergio Perez or Carlos Sainz, as I put it for some reason. None of us said Sergio Perez. I think we all got that Verstappen was going to win the race. But I don't think any of us got second and third. I think Joshua got second and third right. He got the top three right. So he's gained some points there. So Callum M, I'm afraid you are bottom at the moment of the predictions league. So you're going to need to step up, I'm afraid. You've only got 2 points so far. It's really tight, to be fair. You're on 2. Callum O is on 3. I'm on 4. I've lost top spot. We knew it wouldn't last long, didn't we? And then Joshua is in top spot with 5. But there's only 3 points between us. So anything can change in a weekend. And we'll see what your predictions are later and see if that helped you to make any improvements. Let's move on. A feature that we had last year that we've not really been able to do this year so far because there's not been that much news, and that is, the feature is the news. There's no other way of putting it. We could come up with the kind of fancy name and jingle, but we're not going to because 1, we can't be bothered, and 2, there's nothing really exciting about news. But this could be quite exciting. The fact that Formula One is going to race in the USA. It's going to have a 3rd race in the USA from next year after securing a deal for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We're going to get a 3.8 mile track, which will include a portion of the Nevada Resort City famous strip, whatever that means. It will be a night race held on Saturday at 10 o'clock local time, which will mean it is held at 6 a.m. GMT in Europe. Callum M, how excited? I don't know why I keep calling you Callum M. There's no other Callums here. How excited are you to go to America and correct everything that I said wrong in that sentence as well?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it on the head there. I'm cautious about this. Obviously, the audience in the US for F1 has grown so much in the last few years. Drive to Survive a big part of that, of course. But do we need 3 races in one country? It's only ever happened twice before. In fact, it happened in Italy in 2020 when we went to Monza, Imola, and Mugello. Although that was obviously COVID related, not really a thing about there wasn't really a big appetite to have 3 races in the country at that time. The only other time it happened was actually in the US back in 1982. When one of the races was actually held in Vegas around the car park of the Caesars Palace Hotel, a circuit which has gone down as one of the worst in F1 history. If you just look at it, just the actual outline of the circuit, it's completely bonkers that F1 thought, yes, this is a good idea. This track does look a lot better. It could be great. I just question why we need 3 races in one country. We don't even know what Miami is going to be like yet as a circuit or as a spectacle. And we still don't have a race in Africa. That we are pushing a lot for Kailami in South Africa to get a race. There is a lot of appeal from the fan base, but again, if we keep adding tracks like Vegas, we're going to have to lose historic ones in Europe, which again just doesn't sit right with me, and I think a lot of other people as well. I don't know. I think one day if we have a spare week, we'll like draw up our like dream F1 calendar, and we'll see if we'll have 3 races in the US on that. But I highly doubt it.
We will note that down for the summer break when we've got
yes.
nothing to do with 4 weeks or however long it is. We'll definitely try and get something fun like that out, I think. Yeah, the thing with me is I think Miami and Las Vegas could be quite similar events. That it's going to be very celebrity. They look like kind of street circuits as well, and high speed ones. And the danger is obviously the last thing we want is for them to become fast street circuits and dangerous street circuits, a little bit like Saudi. A lot of people are now saying with these 3 American races, people think we've got too many street circuits on the calendar now, and that Monaco is at risk because I see people on Twitter saying nothing ever happens there. What are your thoughts on that? We can't lose Monaco, can we?
Oh, I don't know. Well, honestly, I don't think a topic divides F1 fans more than should Monaco stay on the calendar. Honestly, above everything else, above whether Max Verstappen is too aggressive or whether Lewis Hamilton is as good as people think. But above all of that, the big argument is, will Monaco stay on the calendar? I don't know. I see both sides of the argument. If we had to lose a historic race off the track, I'd absolutely pick Monaco to be the one to lose, purely because the circuit just isn't that entertaining anymore. At least not on a Sunday. On a Saturday, very entertaining. But Grand Prix aren't held on a Saturday, apart from the Vegas one, obviously.
Apart from that one, yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I'd be interested to see what Joshua and Callum think. Joshua will probably want 3 races in Monaco, have our 3 races in the same country in Monaco. That wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it's a really difficult one. But Las Vegas, it should be a great event, just like Miami will be. And obviously we've got Austin that we already kind of all know and love. Would you be prepared to lose Austin if we had these 2 races, or do you think that has to stay?
If they could work out, we'll see how Miami goes in a month's time in terms of being a racing venue, and obviously Vegas next year. If all 3 tracks are good, I wouldn't mind, and Austin is quite a good track. I wouldn't mind an idea of kind of rotating between the 3, but that's, I think, near impossible to work out. It was hard enough for Germany to work out a system where they rotated between Hockenheim and the Nürburgring. So I can't see it happening, but yeah, I wouldn't want to lose Austin. I like it. It's a good venue for F1.
And these 2 American street circuits, last one on these, are there 3 words to blame for these 2 being on the calendar? Drive to survive.
To blame or to credit, depending on your point of view, I guess.
That's true.
But
that's true.
Yeah, it is. Drive to Survive has definitely fueled this. And that's fine. That's fine. I think people were really worried that the sport was going to become too Americanized, and I don't think it has been. I think the changes they made are good, and I think Drive to Survive as a whole has been incredibly good for the sport, regardless of your feelings towards this last series of it. But I don't know. A lot of American fans are glad we're getting 3 races, and good for them. They've just got to make sure they show up and support them now. So.
Now, this is the danger of having just 2 people here, because we are just having a conversation rather than kind of, a chat between the 4 of us, because I'm now going to ask you if you finished watching Drive to Survive, because I think when we first recorded our first podcast, you hadn't. I think you only just started. Have you finished it yet, or have you still got a life like the rest of us and are still busy?
I'm working my way very slowly through it. I think I've only got 2 or 3 episodes left now.
Have you seen Gunter Stein's photo shoot yet?
I have got past that stage. I haven't hated this series as much as some people. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't think it's been as bad as people has made it out to be. But hey, one man's opinion.
Exactly. And Drive to Survive actually leads us perfectly kind of into our Melbourne preview, because the last time we were there was probably in Drive to Survive. We saw in that I think the 2020 series, it must have been, the first episode, everybody was in Melbourne. We were ready to go. The cars were in the garages, ready to go out for practice. I think it was only kind of like the day before, or even hours before the first practice session was going to hit. We were told, no, we're not racing here. There's a pandemic on. I think Lewis Hamilton was very vocal about the fact he was saying, I don't even know why we're here. And eventually, I was going to say he got his way, but he didn't, because it was a health, a health global pandemic. It wasn't Lewis Hamilton that went, no, we're not going here. But yeah, the last time we were in Melbourne was in 2020, and complete shock. Well, not complete shock, but we weren't expecting not to be there, if that makes sense. And I don't think we were expecting to not go back for so long. So at the end of this, what I'm trying to say is, how good is it going to be to be back at Melbourne, or maybe how not so good?
Yeah, I mean, that was when I think it really hit home for people, like what the pandemic was going to mean, because that was one of the first like major events to get cancelled. And again, it was literally just hours before it was meant to begin. Traditionally, I haven't liked. I mean, Australia is a great place to go racing anyway. Australian fans love F1. Got a great history with it, with drivers like Jack Brabham, Alan Jones, Mark Webber, Daniel Ricciardo now, of course. The only problem is the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne isn't the most entertaining in the world. And a lot of people always think Australia should host the first race of the season. I completely disagree. Because if you want to open the season with a bang, that's why we go to Bahrain or other circuits. But if you open in Australia, it's usually a rather drab affair. You have to get up early in the morning as well to watch it, which I know is just a pin for us Europeans, obviously. But this year, I think things will be different. A lot of circuit changes, which I think we're going to get into now, which I think could work very nicely.
Talk us through them then. We've got the new changes. I should have written them down in front of me. You may have them written down in front of you, and it'll be amazing if you do, because I haven't. The main one that I lost one of the chicanes, one of the heavy braking zones that goes into a chicane and then goes kind of out into that DRS zone where it kind of curves round, and then you've got the fast right and then left towards the end of the track. And then I think there's another DRS zone after that. I think that's where the DRS zone is, isn't it? But anyway, you probably know more about this than I do. Talk us through the track changes that you know of, and whether or not you think they're going to be beneficial.
So they already announced months ago that yes, that chicane, they were going to get rid of that, and that has basically opened up a more like fast flowing section during the middle of the track. They've also widened a lot of the corners as well to increase overtaking opportunities. And for the first time since F1 went racing there in 1996, they have resurfaced the track completely. Which will make things very, very interesting, as obviously the cars have to lay down a lot more rubber this weekend. The big news, though, and this was announced on Monday, is that there will be not one, not two, not three, but 4 DRS zones, which we've never had in F1 before. Traditionally you had 2 down the main straight, and then you had this chicane, then you had another little DRS zone going down turn 3. So that is remaining, but now where this big sort of long curved sort of speed zone is going to be, I think between turns 9 and 10 or 8 and 9, there's going to be a DRS zone there. Then there's a little chicane, and there's another little DRS zone before you get into the end of the track, as you were describing earlier. I think this is going to make things so much more tastier this weekend, and yeah, bring it on. I wasn't excited really for Albert Park, but I am now. These are good changes.
Good. That's what we like to hear. I've just quickly pulled up the Autosport article, and you've got it bang on. Several corners have been reprofiled and made wider, while the biggest changes have been made towards the back of the circuit. The run from the new turn 6 down to turn 11 is now much faster, complex, of sweeping turns to help provide an overtaking opportunity, which is literally what you've just said. So well done, you. So yeah, it does look like it's going to be much better. Do you think this could top Bahrain and Saudi as the best race of the season so far?
Ooh, too early to say. Too early to say.
Fair enough. I'll let you off with that one. With Australian Grand Prix in the past, what have you expected from Melbourne usually? I mean, I know you've already said it's going to be much more exciting, but is there any kind of memories that stand out from you for Australia of particularly boring races or exciting ones?
It's not a lot of great memories there from my experience of it. I think it was always interesting because it was always the opening round. So that it was more just seeing where every team was in terms of performance and where every driver was as well. quite a, I guess, from the last time we went there, I had a very interesting team radio message from Valtteri Bottas after he stunned everyone to win the Grand Prix, and obviously revealed that he'd been eating a lot of porridge over the winter break, which hence why he's now the porridge king or whatever. And of course, the other one, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear on this, but he said to everyone concerned, F you, basically, which a lot of people loved, and unfortunately has now been memed to death. So
good old Valtteri. Well, let's hope that he gets a decent result in his Alfa Romeo this weekend, because he's certainly been impressing us so far. Let's get straight into our predictions then. We haven't got Joshua's or Callum O's yet, just because we haven't. So let's go straight to yours then. Pole position for you, first of all.
I'm going to back Charles Leclerc again to get pole.
The main man again. I've gone with Max. I think they're probably the only two that you could have gone for, to be fair. So I'm pretty sure one of us will be getting a point, and obviously you need the point. So hopefully Charles Leclerc does get pole for you. In terms of your top three, what have you gone for there in terms of for the race finish, of course?
Well, with the increased DRS zones, I think the Red Bulls with their better top speed are going to have a good race, and as such, Max Verstappen will beat Charles Leclerc, who will finish second, and then tough one for third. I think it's a toss-up between Sainz and Perez, or the same person as obviously you think they are. But I'm going with Sainz third.
Oh, you're not going to let me forget that for the rest of the season. You know,
Nope.
What was I doing? Oh dear, it's because I've been at work 9:30 till 5 today, and then I came home and then did this out of like 5 minutes notice or whatever it was, because Joshua and Callum were being annoying. No, I'm joking. So yeah, we'll just forget that ever happened, and hopefully Joshua and Callum don't listen back to this episode and remember that. So anyway, I've gone with Max first, Leclerc second, and then I've gone with Lewis Hamilton in third. I've gone, my wild card kind of links into this. Well, not really. The first wild card I wrote down was someone is going to surprise us from somewhere. And then I thought, that is probably the most vague wild prediction I could have ever put.
That's literally what a wild card is, Matt.
Yeah.
You can't get away with that.
So I've gone with Williams are going to surprise us this weekend, and I'm going to go, they're going to have one car in the top 10 at the end of the Grand Prix. Whether or not it's going to happen, who knows? But that's going to be my Williams prediction, and that kind of coincides with, I think Mercedes are going to have found some improvement, not massive improvements, but I think they're going to have found some improvements. That's why I've got Hamilton third. But yeah, my wild prediction, we'll get straight into those. I've gone with A Williams in the top 10. Let's have yours.
Yeah. Well, Australian drivers haven't had a great history with the Australian Grand Prix. No Australian driver has finished on the podium, believe it or not. Ricciardo has come close. He did finish second in 2014 initially, and then was disqualified afterwards. So kind of tagging on that a bit, I think Daniel Ricciardo will get his first points of the season this weekend. A lot of people will probably say, is that wild? Well, he hasn't scored yet this season. McLaren look woefully off the pace, but it is the home Grand Prix, so he is going to be spurred on by that. And apparently the McLaren, the reason it's been struggling is it doesn't like warmer temperatures. Hence why the two races in the Middle East and in testing, they weren't looking so good. In a slightly cooler environment, and apparently it is going to be quite cloudy this weekend in Melbourne, I think McLaren will turn up a bit more. So yes, Daniel Ricciardo to finish in the points this weekend.
I think we need to see that from McLaren as well. I think we're all a bit bored of them finishing so low down the pecking order. Apart from the fact that horrific livery is never shown on TV, that's kind of the good thing about it, right?
I'm not getting into this debate again. Not again. No.
We've got evenings to get on with. We can't be going back into this. But yeah, that is the good thing about McLaren not being there. We don't get to see that awful livery. Sorry, Josh. Did he not like it? I can't remember. I can't remember what everybody said.
I'm in the middle.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's where McLaren are this weekend, and rather than towards the back. Because that would certainly be progress. Last thing to say is, have you got your alarm set for practice at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something? We're obviously in the UK. Have you got the alarm set for the weekend, or are you going to watch it all on catch up?
I will be watching on catch up. Not the qualifying in the race I'll get up for. Practice.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't blame you whatsoever. So if you're in the UK, practice 1 on Friday is at 4 a.m. Practice 2 is at 7 a.m. I usually get up about 7ish, so I may watch practice and then go to work. Who knows? Depends how I'm feeling. If you're in the UK on Saturday, I don't know why I keep saying that. 4 a.m. for practice 3 and 7 a.m. for qualifying. So it's the same again. And then Sunday, for some reason, not showing up on my calendar, but I think is it a 6 a.m. race start on Sunday or 7?
It's a 6 a.m. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
6. It's
So slightly
yeah.
harsh on Sunday, 6 a.m. race start. So you'll probably have to get up about 2 o'clock to start watching the hours of Sky coverage that gets put on before every race. I'll probably be up at about 5:30 for Martin's grid walk. We didn't get Martin's grid walk. We got Johnny Herbert's grid interviews, didn't we? It wasn't even really a grid walk. It was just like I don't really know what it was. So Callum obviously is not going to be on the Twitter this weekend because he's not going to be up for any of the practice. Maybe we'll make Joshua get on it for missing practice, for missing the podcast. I think that's a fair enough punishment. He's at uni as well, so we can get up when he wants. Whereas I'm at home, so I can't. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me. Enough waffle from us. Thank you for joining me, Callum. I'm glad we managed to get something out. Something is better than nothing, as they say. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. It's at lightsoutpod_. We're also on TikTok and Instagram as well, and probably Snapchat and any social media you can think of. I think Joshua has put us on there. And then we're also on YouTube, which is Lights Out Podcast, and Spotify, which is Lights Out Podcast, which you should know because that's probably what you're listening to us on. Make sure you're following us on pretty much everything. That's the message overall. And enjoy Melbourne this weekend. We'll be back for whatever the next race is. Is it Imola after Melbourne? I think it is, isn't it?
God, is it Imola already? Blimey. Okay, yes. I'm going to guess it is.
Have a quick check of the calendar. 15th of April. No, nothing is coming up. That's really annoying. But yeah, it is Imola on the 22nd of April.
Is Imola. There you go then.
That's going to be good fun. We've got a few weeks off, which I think we need after this podcast because it's been a bit of a disaster from my end, thinking that Sergio Perez was Carlos Sainz. What on earth was I doing? Anyway, that's enough waffle from us. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you all in a few weeks' time. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.